I'm Ron Fine. I'm the legal director of Free Speech for People. And today we're going to talk about Donald Trump's pardon of Sheriff Joe Arpaio, why it abuses the presidential pardon power, and why it's grounds for impeachment hearings. It's hard to summarize in a short video everything that Joe Arpaio did because for 20 years he ran the Maricopa County, Arizona Sheriff's Office with shocking cruelty and lawlessness. I've included a link so you can read more. Among other things, he kept prisoners in tent cities at 145 degrees Fahrenheit. He called them concentration camps. And he was cited repeatedly by the United States Department of Justice and by federal courts for cruel and inhumane treatment of prisoners and for unconstitutional police practices. In 2011, a court issued an order ordering the sheriff's office to stop detaining people who there was no suspicion of any crime, but the sheriff's office was stopping them on the theory that they might be undocumented immigrants. But Arpaio didn't follow the order. He openly defied it and encouraged the people that worked for him in the sheriff's office to ignore it. So in 2016, that same federal judge found him in civil contempt of court and referred his case to a second federal judge to determine if he was guilty of criminal contempt of court. And that second federal judge found that Arpaio was guilty of criminal contempt of court for willfully disobeying the court order. And then 2 weeks after the verdict, Donald Trump told Fox News that he was considering pardoning Arpaio. And then he asked a campaign audience in Phoenix,
"Was Sheriff Joe convicted for doing his job?" That's what.
And then on August 25th, Donald Trump issued his first presidential pardon to Joe Arpaio. The pardon of Joe Arpaio sent a message loud and clear to unscrupulous government officials. They can follow Trump's advice, violate the constitutional rights of people, and then if a federal court orders them to stop doing it, they can ignore it, because if they're convicted of criminal contempt of court, Trump will pardon them. This blows up the constitutional right to due process of law and the court's ability to protect constitutional rights. The Constitution says that the president can be impeached for treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. The Constitution doesn't define high crimes and misdemeanors, but one thing that virtually every scholar agrees on is that these don't actually need to be criminal acts. The framers of the Constitution were not perfect people by any means. A lot of them owned slaves or defended slavery. They were all white men with property, and they had some serious blind spots. But they did have a pretty sharp eye for the dangers of an autocratic president, based on their own experiences with the King of England. Let's set the scene. Richmond, Virginia, June 18th, 1788. George Mason was one of Virginia's delegates to the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. But today, he isn't happy with their proposed constitution. He's worried that it will lead to tyranny. He raises an objection to the pardon power. He says, "I conceive that the president ought not to have the power of pardoning, because he may frequently pardon crimes which were devised by himself. It may happen at some future day that he will establish a monarchy and destroy the republic. If he has the power of granting pardons before indictment or conviction, may he not stop inquiry and prevent detection?" This is a weighty objection with me. But then James Madison speaks up. But he's in favor of the proposed Constitution. In fact, he had a critical role in drafting it, and he's often called the father of the Constitution. So this is what James Madison says. "If the president be connected in any suspicious manner with any person, and there be grounds to believe he will shelter him," meaning by pardoning, "the House of Representatives can impeach him. They can remove him if found guilty. This is a great security." That's huge. That tells you what they understood it meant for what could happen if a president abused the pardon power, that just as James Madison said, he could be impeached. But that's not all. Almost 150 years later, the Supreme Court heard a case challenging a pardon. Now, in that case, the Supreme Court rejected the challenge, but we need to hear the words of Chief Justice William Howard Taft. He wrote that if a president abused the pardon power, that would suggest a resort to impeachment. So there you have it. Donald Trump's pardon of Joe Arpaio crossed the line that's never been crossed before. It's an abuse of power, it's a high crime or misdemeanor, and it's grounds for impeachment.